truth. We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. We sit in the house and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone.
In order to force the president's hand and compel him to do what we hired him to do, which is run the government within the confines of the Constitution and only with the money he collects from taxes and other fees.
Well, you're absolutely right. You know, what we have to look at is the president is the chief executive officer of this corporation called the United States of America. The president is the chief executive officer of this corporation called the United States of America.
Can you handle the truth? Welcome to the Jordan Maxwell Show.
Hello, folks. This is Jordan Maxwell himself. I have not been able to do my show for some time because of my health, but I'm happy to be able to be on today with a dear friend that I wouldn't miss no matter how I felt. So my friend today, my guest, is a dear friend of mine for many years. His name is Tim Leedom, Timleedom. Tim Leedom was the editor of the book that I was happy to be a part of with Steve Allen and Tim. Tim put a bunch of top-of-the-line writers together quite a few years ago, and he edited and put together the book called The Book Your Church Does Not Want You to Read. And it was a sensational. I think it sold over 1 million copies as of today. This was quite a few years ago. It's had so many reprintings. And we'll talk to Tim about the book and about whatever he's doing right now. He's got some projects I wanted you to know about. So let's see if we're actually hooked up with Tim. Tim, are you there?
I am, Jordan. Thank you.
Oh, there you go. Well, I think we're all ready to go then. And this is American Freedom Radio Network. And the people at American Freedom Radio Network are very close friends of mine, very dear friends. And I really appreciate the kindness that they have shown toward me over the years. And happily, I still have a show, even though I've been too sick to do it for some time. But I'm happy to be here today with my friend Tim. And I wanted to talk with Tim about some project he's involved in right now. He was, as I said, the editor of the book who put the book together. And back then, we were working in San Diego. And he got Steve Allen, the musician, comedian, movie star Steve Allen, involved. And Steve got involved with this book and many other great writers, teachers, educators, professors from university, and even me. He got me in on it. And so I was talking to Tim a couple of days ago, and he's got some new projects I wanted everyone to know about. That's why we decided to do this show today. So, Tim, what's going on now today with what you're doing?
Well, let's see. Jordan, we're trying to segue the inroads that we've made with religious literacy. And as you know, when you started, 40 years ago as one of the earlier pioneers. And I can say this, we have made some progress.
I know. Yeah.
A long way. The church book was conceived as basically saying, look, you have reason and you have religion. And you've read all about religion. And now let's take a look at reason. And we collected, with your help, some of the leading advocates for religious literacy, from Dr. LaRue at the USC, Steve Allen, of course, Dr. Robert Eisenman, who in 1991, against all headwinds, as an archaeologist, went to Qumran in the Dead Sea Scroll, and guess what? There's nothing about Jesus in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Forever, of course, they were found in 1947, and there was all sorts of resistance by the Catholic Church. Strugnell, who was at Harvard, was a Catholic, and he made it almost impossible to get the Dead Sea Scrolls released because no matter what the fundamentalist Christians said, there is nothing about Jesus in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And
as a matter of fact, there's astrology in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Dr. Howard, what was his name? Dr. Snow.
Snow. Yep.
Alan Snow. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Astrology, I guess, is basically the basis of a lot of religions.
Yes, it is. It is. And Dr. Alan Snow talked about the fact that nobody is talking in the Dead Sea Scrolls group of scholars. Nobody wanted to talk about the astrology, which is in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So he studied it to the point where he got his PhD, his doctorate in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and his book, his work that got him the PhD was on the astrology in the Dead Sea Scrolls. A lot of people know all about the Dead Sea Scrolls, but very few people know that astrology was very much a part of the Dead Sea Scrolls. But Jesus was not. There was no mention of Jesus in the Dead Sea Scrolls at all.
No, so, even Sidney Omar, who at one of the times was a great, in astrology, etc., he said the basis, there's nothing different between astrology and religion.
There isn't. That's right.
It's the same thing. And it was good that Dr. Snow, who worked with Robert Eisenman, who both of them have doctorates, came up with that. And I think bit by bit, the truth is reason, and truth is taking over for this incredible story that has gripped mankind for 2,000 years.
Yeah, and I've been talking here lately, within the last 60 years, I've been talking about the fact that Christianity, and I'm not trying to belittle anyone's faith or anyone's belief system. I'm not trying to harm or make fun of. I have the highest of respect for people's belief systems and things that people believe in. And I want to say that I am not an atheist. I do not have any atheistic belief systems. I do believe in the presence of a very spiritual power in the universe, and I respect that, and people call it God. I don't have any problem with respecting the spiritual presence in the universe. I don't use the word God very much because I think it's misunderstood. But I'm not trying to in any way criticize or make fun of or make light of anyone's belief system. I'm merely trying to explain the basis from which our belief systems have come. And this is why we did that book, the book your church does not want you to read. And we had so many great authors and lecturers and teachers who contributed to it. We did book signings in Los Angeles with Steve Allen, and we did book signings in Orange County. It was in the Los Angeles Times, and it was a big deal when it came out. The book was very, very famous when it came out. It caught people's attention, and it's still today is selling well today. The book your church does not want you to read, and Tim Leedom is the editor. Tim and I go back a long time. We remember all the stuff we had to go through in trying to get the book published and all the, trying to coordinate everybody, and we finally got it done. And it's done. How well have you heard how well the book has done since we did it many years ago?
Yeah, it was done in we finished it up in 1983, or 93, I'm sorry. And our first book signing was in Balboa Island. And Steve Allen was there, LaRue was there, Eisenman was there, yourself, Dr. Snow, and 6 or 7 other scholars, and it took off. It
was a fun time. It was a fun thing to do. We really had a lot of great time together, all of us there.
Yeah, and that day at that small bookstore, we sold 300 books, and then.
Oh, really? Wow.
And it really took off after that. Just about a month or 2 months later, we were invited to the flagship of Barnes & Noble in Newport Beach, and we sold another 300 books.
Yeah, so, I remember that.
Yeah. And so I think I think we caught things at the right time, that people are starting to say, wait a minute. I've seen what the Catholic Church has done with children and and the cover up, and I've seen what the fundamentalist preachers are doing with their money. Jordan and I were talking earlier about, there's one preacher,
in Texas.
His net worth is $750 million, $750 million. And he has 3 planes, and it's that's a sin. That's a sin. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do is have people wake up and make up their own mind. And I think one of the projects that we're doing right now is we're looking, and probably the biggest fraud in history is the second coming of Jesus. And we have a book that's done, and we're looking to do a documentary, an hour-long documentary. And Jordan will be one of our associate editors. And we have Eisenman involved, and Larry Pano, who is the executive producer for the Academy Award-nominated film Silkwood, is involved. And then, of course, early on, Steve Allen was our biggest supporter. And Jordan and I spent several days up in Burbank with Steve. And he said, look, and I have just one story. I think Steve said, we're looking to do a film, basically, initially. And he said, well, why don't you get hold of Norman Lear? And Norman Lear is the head of American People for American Way. And I called him. And unfortunately, I was such a newbie, I sent him about 400 pages of the book and the script. And he personally called me back and laughed, and he says, I like what you're doing, but don't ever send somebody 450 pages of blood.
Yeah, you send the whole thing.
Yeah, but he's always he's in our book, Norman Lear, and these are the kind of people that have said, hey, enough is enough. It's time that people educate themselves. And that's what we're trying to do. And with the main man, it's about the story of Jesus and their supporters. And not only do these fantastic stories give people false hope,
that's right,
and total ignorance, they also, the televangelists in our country are milking and bilking people out of hundreds of millions of dollars a year with these fantastic stories.
And paying no taxes whatsoever.
No taxes. So it goes right into their coffers, whether it's Benny Hinn or the Trinity Broadcasting or Roberts or even Billy Graham. He talked about Billy Graham, Robert Schuller, all of these people that were all members of secret societies and
hidden. Their names were hidden from the public, and their connections with secret societies and fraternal orders that were promoting, dumbing down America and dumbing down the people and keeping them ignorant and ill-informed and unread and making multiple millions off of them. And this is what's been going on, and we felt and like I said, I'm not trying to belittle anyone's belief system. What I'm trying to do is be a teacher and help people to understand where these stories have come from and stop spending your time and effort and money and energy on the church when the Bible itself actually says, get out of her, my people, if you don't want to share with her and her sins. So get out of her, my people, not the Buddhists, not the Hindus. The scripture says, get out of her, my people. Get out of this whole operation called religion. Christianity has been misrepresented to the world, and now it's finally beginning to fall apart, and people are now beginning to question the validity and the veracity of what's being taught in churches. And this is what Tim and I have been trying to do for so many years, is get to the public the real story of where these religions have come from, because they are misleading. The millions of people around the world have been misled. And this is why today the world we live in is falling apart. Governments are collapsing. Lies are being exposed every day. The church, the Catholic Church, there's nothing you can say about that operation. The Catholic Church, with all of its pornography and its violence and its connection to the underworld, connection directly to motion pictures in Hollywood. It's just an extraordinary story of what religion has done to the human family on the earth. And we have been trying to do something about it, and now today Tim is involved in some really exciting new projects that I wanted everyone to be aware of. So tell us about what the people can do and what they need to know.
Okay. Well, since, and I can't say enough about Jordan, when we were looking around, the way that I really got involved was my daughter was premature, and so I was home a lot with my daughter. And then, of course, about 1 o'clock when Kels took a nap, sure enough, what happened? You'd have TBN or Oral Roberts or somebody on television. And without an exception, they were all talking about the coming of the next, of Jesus is coming back. And, oh, by the way, Jesus doesn't have enough money for his hotel, so we need $100 donation and this, that, and the other thing. And I got so irritated at this. And luckily I met people like Jordan and Steve Allen and LaRue, who was the head of comparative religion at USC, et cetera. And so we were motivated. Now, since then, we've had several books, and Jordan also contributed to this book. It's called the book No Pope Would Want You to Read. And basically, I have to admit that the first book was saying to people, look, make up your own mind. At least if you're going to be in religion, get all the facts. Not the faith, the facts. Not religion, but reason. And as a result, the book has been printed in 4 different languages. It's done extremely well in Italy, also in Poland and across England. And the Pope book, the book No Pope Wants You to Read, is more of an indictment. I mean, on the cover of the book, Steve Allen gave me a quote when we interviewed him, and I think Jordan might have been at the interview too. He said that the Roman Catholic Church is is organized crime, a virtual crime wave throughout history. And when he told me that, I'm thinking, hey, Steve Areno, are you kidding me? But he's right. He was right. And he wasn't laughing. That's a great line for his show.
No doubt about it. Yeah, Steve Allen was a brilliant writer. He had something like 38 to 40 books he had written about history, about everything in the world. A brilliant writer and a brilliant man.
Yeah, a Renaissance man.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And he was the founder and the guy who started the Tonight Show on NBC. Mm-hmm. And he was an incredible entertainer, wrote music, books, motion pictures, etc., and very highly educated man. And he's the one that helped get the book off the ground when we were putting the book together.
He did. Yeah, so, and his wife, of course, Audrey Meadows, who is a wonderful woman, and she came to all the book signings. And
what a sweetheart she was. Yeah,
you're right. So basically, we've evolved to the point that we're looking at religion, and we look at the story of Jesus is coming back critically for a couple of reasons. Okay, if you look at the writings of some of our great mythologists, including
Joseph Campbell, and 2 or 3 others. And then history has told about all the religions talking about, he's coming back. And there was a book written in the early 60s by U. Schoenfield, and it was called The Passover Plot. Yep, you're right.
And he was a biblical scholar and worked on the Dead Sea Scrolls. And
basically in his book, he was saying, the Passover plot, it gained a lot of angry response from the public when it first came out, because he was showing that the whole thing was a made-up story.
Yeah.
Never happened.
He was one of the pioneers, and as they say, if you're a pioneer, you're going to either get the arrows or the gold. And he got a lot of arrows, but it's like people like that who suddenly woke up a lot of people and said, "Oh my God, you're kidding!" You know.
You're right.
And so we look at the story of Jesus is coming back as kind of like the German battleship, the Bismarck. It's out there, and it's certainly vulnerable. And we are honing in on this fantastic story, and for 2 reasons. Number one, it's a fantastic story. Okay, it's more than a myth. And number 2, the people that are suffering from this, the hundreds of millions of dollars. And if you turn on television, whether you're in Los Angeles or New York or Chicago or whatever, I call it the Valley of Death. That there are 11 or 13 stations of fundamentalist Christianity, and they're all asking for money. And they're all saying that Jesus is coming back, and you better get your money in now to buy your ticket on, so you're one of the 144,000 people that's going to be saved. And I mean, it's almost comical, but it's also these people can't afford the $100 or $200 a month that they're getting bilked out of. So those are the 2 reasons. This is a fantastic, ridiculous story. And secondly, it's being used to fleece a lot of people who maybe haven't been exposed to education, or they're not that intelligent or whatever. But it's an insult to, spirituality.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's also a political tool that's being used by the powers that be in this world behind the throne of power around the world. The Vatican is highly, highly involved with the mafia, La Cosa Nostra in Italy, the organized crime, organized drug running, white slavery, pornography, child abuse. And it's just an extraordinarily, like Steve Allen said, criminal organization that's been around for centuries, 1,600 years. For 1,600 years, the Vatican has ruled Europe. And for 1,600 years, Europe has ruled the world. And so that's why all roads lead to Rome. If you go back into history, you'll find that Rome was at the bottom line on all of the wars, the violence, the pornographic stuff going on in religion, even still today, and that nuns, according to the reference books, encyclopedias of religion, the nuns were originally the prostitutes of the cardinals. And the cardinals had their kept women, but they had to put them somewhere and take care of them and feed them. And they had to have a home because they were being kept purposely, individual prostitutes for individual cardinals. And so they developed in the Catholic Church a place to put all the prostitutes, and they called them nuns. And that's why today we have in the Catholic Church we have nuns. The females who were married to the church. And when you say they're married to the church, they're married to Jesus. They're the bride of Jesus. And since the cardinals represent Jesus, therefore the cardinals can use the women as their wives. And so that's what has happened over the centuries, that the cardinals have used the prostitutes, which they call nuns. And that's interesting because there's a history that most people do not know anything about. And that's why today in Islam, another religion is doing the same thing. The women are all dressed in black, just like the Catholic nuns are dressed in black. And the Catholic nuns have long robes that cover them completely, just as they do in Islam. And in Islam, they wear the covers over their face. Because according to the Bible, according to history, in Islam, when the women would wear a cover over their face, it was because they were prostitutes. Prostitutes were known in the Middle East to wear scarves and cloth over their face, so that you only see their eyes, only their eyes. And this way the women don't have to be ridiculed in public for being prostitutes because nobody knows who they are. And so that's why today in Islam, women wear the covering over their face, because that's what the Bible says. The Bible says that the women wore scarves over their faces because they were prostitutes, and they didn't want people to know who they were. Yeah. So that's what's happening today in Islam. The men are keeping their women as prostitutes, just as the cardinals kept their prostitutes and called them nuns. And the women still wear the black robes. So there's a lot to history and the history of religion that people are just not aware of and have no idea in the world. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, we're trying to, with a small flashlight, is look into these dark corners. And like we talked, we're talking about the second coming of Jesus, etc. People can say, well, it's only a myth, so what? In 1983, there was an alliance between the Zionists and the fundamentalist Christians, and they were tunneling toward the Temple of the Dome, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, to blow it up because of one of the things that has to happen to bring Jesus back, supposedly according to the Bible, is that a new temple be, first of all, a temple destroyed, and a new temple erected. So they wanted to get rid of the old temple, and this would supposedly hasten Jesus' return. And in the day of nuclear weapons and suitcase bombs and fanatics, this could set off something that it's just a powder keg there in the Mideast. And these stories build up, and build up. And religion is not inclusive, it's exclusive. And that's the worst thing about it.
Yep. And it's also, as you said, it's just a waiting to blow up. It's waiting to completely blow up and get totally out of hand, and that could start the Third World War, which ultimately will absolutely destroy everything the human race has worked for all these thousands of years. If they ever, and we've heard all these stories about what's going on the Temple Mount, and on the Temple Mount is something called the Dome of the Rock. And the reason why it's the Dome of the Rock is because Islam's major artifact is a pet rock. That's a basis for Islam today, is a pet rock, and they even have a dome over the pet rock. So it's called the Dome of the Rock in Israel. And the rock is supposedly a meteorite that hit the earth, and the meteorite scared everyone because no one knew what it was. It was a big round stone that hit the earth, and so the ancient people believed it was a message from God, because God sent a message down here on a meteorite. So they brought the meteorite, and they put a feminine connotation to it, so that you have to go and kiss the stone, and the stone represents the female vagina. It's a very interesting story about what's really going on in Islam at the Dome of the Rock. People don't realize the rock is actually, in point of fact, a meteorite. It is a rock, and it's a rock from heaven. So,
there are just so many of these artifacts are made up stories. Supposedly, when Muhammad left the earth, his horse left his hoof print in the cement or the sand there in that area. Supposedly.
Yep.
Now, whether that's true or not, or if that's even half true or not, I don't know. But I think the thing is, intellectually, these stories I think it's the term that I've always heard is it dumbeth down.
Yeah.
And it's keeping people ignorant.
And hoping for something to come to help us, when the bottom line is that no one's coming to help the human family. There's no one coming back. Why? Because it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult for anyone to make a big comeback when you've never been anywhere to start with. That's why we know right. Jesus will not be coming back, because he was never here to begin with. How can you come back? And so then when you find out that Jesus is actually a story coming out of India, and Christianity and Judaism and Islam, all three have their beginnings in the Hindu religion, going all the way back to India, and ultimately also to Egypt. Egypt picked up a lot of its teachings from India, and India was the mother of all three of our major religions today.
Yeah. No, you're right. You look at all, whether it's Taoism or Hinduism or Buddhism or Shintoism or Christianity or Judaism, they all come from that valley.
That's right. It goes back to, that's why the Masonic order says that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. The idea is that if Freemasons want to know if you are a Mason, they will say, have you ever traveled to the east? And when you say, yes, I've been to the east, it means that you understand it's a Masonic term, meaning all the religions and philosophies and ideas of government, religion, banking, institutions of education, all of it goes back to India. It goes back to where the sun rises each morning into the ancient East. And that's why our religions are all based on astrology and the sun. The sun was the single greatest symbol the world has ever used. The single greatest symbol ever used in religion ever was the sun. And that's why the sun is on the badges of police departments. It's on the symbol of police, on government agencies, banking, industrial, military-industrial complex, educational institutions, schools. The symbol of the sun is used everywhere. And this is why the Bible says God's Son is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, because the King of all the kings in the world is the symbol of the sun, God's Son. And I ask the question, who owns the sun? Who owns the sun? Well, theoretically, I suppose if you're religious, you could say nobody owns the sun. Well, maybe God owns the sun. So therefore, God owns the sun. The sun that comes up every morning is called God's Son. And he is our risen Savior. Of course, it rises every morning about 5:30. And the sun, the S-U-N, that round globe that comes up in the morning, is your Savior. Just think about what the world is going to be like if it don't rise. 3 weeks will be frozen stiff. The earth will not have any life on it within a month. If the sun doesn't rise, we will be in total darkness and freezing. And so the sun is our risen Savior. And he has 12 helpers. He had 12 apostles, 12 brothers of Joseph, the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 symbols on the breastplate of the high priest. Everything is in the Bible is done on the symbol of 12. Why? Because it has to do with the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 months of the year. And this is why you have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which are the 4 Gospels, which represents the 4 times of the year that you have 4 seasons of the year. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is spring, summer, autumn, winter. And this is why, when you begin to look at the background of religions and where they come from, it all of a sudden becomes overwhelmingly obvious that our Christianity and Judaism and Islam are all based on Hinduism, on the worship of the ancient sun. And my God, we could talk for hours about this subject, which we've done, and I've done for many years. I've been talking about this symbolic stuff that we are now calling Christianity and Judaism. There is virtually no legitimate, real history in Judaism or Christianity. I think, according to my understanding, Judaism is probably the most eclectic religion on the earth today. The word eclectic means it's like a smorgasbord. You go into the restaurant, you can just pass down the long line and pick up whatever it is you want, whatever looks good to you, and put it on your plate. And so at the end of the line, you got all that you want, and all that you want to hear, and all that you want to believe. And this is what we call Judaism. Judaism is a mixture of about 7 different ancient cults that people have never been told. The rabbis have never told the Jewish people about where Judaism has actually come from. It's connected to 7 different ancient cults. And that's a whole story in itself. I could talk for hours on that. I've already done that. I'm on the web talking about that. The mere fact that Christianity is based on one cult, the old solar cult, the worship of the sun. And this is why you go to church on Sunday, S-U-N, Sunday. And on Easter, Christians go out and have something they call the Easter sunrise service. They go out at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch the sun come up over the horizon. And why is it called a horizon? Because the sun god was called Horus. And Horus was rising. And every morning, Horus rises. So it's called a horizon. And he had 12 helpers, or 12 followers. And that's the 12 months of the year, the 12 signs of the zodiac. Life was a 12-step program, like your watch. It starts at 1, it goes to 12. You start in the first grade and you go to the 12th grade. It's a 12-step program. You need to understand the entire subject of religion is based on astrology and the ancient mysteries schools. And this is what I've been trying to tell people for so many years too. I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings or to belittle anyone's beliefs. I'm merely trying to point out that religion is based on far older material, far older stories. And people have never been told these stories. And I think it's about time we do that. And that's why I wanted Tim on today to talk about what are you doing in the future with this kind of information, Tim?
Yeah. Well, I think just going back to the early times, and then I'll bring it right to the future or to the present, is that I can remember when we came out with our book, and the book was the title of the book came from a telephone company. It was called the Donnelly Directory, and I think Jordan might have even been there at the time. I was driving down to San Diego. And I was thinking, God, what are we going to call this book? And then there was the ad on the radio, and it says the Donnelly Directory, the book your phone company doesn't want you to read. And that immediately said, this is what I'm going to call it, the book your church doesn't want you to read. And I think, and because of that, we got the attention. And in the early days, you take it, you go back even 100 years before a Jordan Maxwell or a Steve Allen or any of the pioneers that said, look, do some research. There was a lot of pushback. And we had a lot of pushback. But I'll tell you, after about 5 or 6 months, and we sold 5,000 books in less than a month and a half. Our first printing was 5,000 books. And it just caught on because people, and I got calls later, and they said, Tim, when this book first came out, I'm thinking, you're all a bunch of atheists, and you're against this and against that. Then people started reading this, and it made so much sense. And this is what we're trying to do. And, of course, the Catholic Church has really helped us with all their scandals. We couldn't ask for more publicity and public relations for our book, because all the way up to the Pope and all the way to the cardinals in Washington, D.C. and all this, they were better than the best public relations firm that we could ever have. But we're really, really honing in on this story, which you're going to hear more about, because every day that goes past, I even saw the other day on television, there was a preacher there who had an hourglass behind him. And also on the other side of the screen was a money thermometer. And as the sand went out of the hourglass, which represented the day that Jesus is going to come back, then on the other side was the money thermometer. So the more he talked, you'd flash to the phone room, and people were calling in, donating. And it was absolutely, it was so cynical, that it was
it's
almost like Saturday night. Yeah.
Right. It's hard to believe that grown adult people do not see through the antics and the Hollywood antics of the preachers today.
Yeah, antics.
It's incredible.
That's an excellent word. Yeah. Yeah, I expected to see Chevy Chase or somebody come across and say, okay, here I am. So what we're looking for, Jordan, is to get some support, whether it's spiritual or financial or just getting the word out about what we're doing. And our first thing is a documentary. And luckily we have a very, very successful
motion picture producer.
Producer. We have our studios are down in Laguna Beach. We have all the equipment. We have drones. We started out with nothing, as Jordan can attest. And now we have the best cameras. We have the Avid editing bay. We have 2 or 3 people that are totally dedicated to what we're doing. And we're going to do a documentary on the story, which is the greatest story ever sold, which is the return of Jesus, which is used to keep people totally ignorant and also to bilk them out of money. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. That's the way we feel. So
I totally agree, and I think that it's an idea whose time has come because there's a war going on in the Middle East that threatens to blow up. And when it does, there's going to be a lot of violence and bloodshed in Europe and America, and it's going to ignite a horrible tragedy on the earth, all caused by misunderstanding and lies in religion. And and people will finally see that their governments and their churches are actually just corporations. They're corporations on the stock market. Americans do not know that the United States is a corporation. It's a company. And therefore, the Catholic Church and the different churches are nothing more than corporations. This is why all the different churches are divided into money, corporation money. And that's why we say that their different churches have different denominations. Denominations is the way you divvy up the money in the denominations. And that's why we have churches are in denominations, 50s, 100s, and thousands. And so religion has to finally be found out what it is doing to the human family. And it's about time, because we're going into a time of perilous and frightening implications. Because I'm just looking at the Jehovah's Witnesses, for instance. So far, since the 1860s, they've been talking about 1870s, 1880s. The Jehovah's Witnesses have been talking about the end times, the last days, and the people who have seen, the last days, the world's coming to an end, and they're still saying the same thing, although it's hundreds of years later, they're still saying the same thing, just as Christianity has been telling people that Jesus is coming back. He's all ready to come back now, getting ready to show up any day. And all you need to do is send some money to the church. It's because the preacher is down to his last $500 million. He's down to his last few bucks. Yeah, and so he needs some more money.
No, I shouldn't be laughing, but I mean, it's sardonic humor, basically. I
know.
It's unbelievable.
It is, and somewhere along the line, the people are going to finally wake up. And when they do, there's going to be a lot of trouble. When they find out that they have been misled by the banking institution, governmental institutions, taxing institutions, banks, educational institutions have been lying to you, and now you find out even the idea of God's being over mankind, and you find out that was a man-made idea, man-made institution, and all the churches are corporations and companies. They're all incorporated. And so the whole story of Jesus coming back is just a story to cover for eventually people are going to wonder, when is he coming back? For 200 years, the Jehovah's Witnesses have been told that he's on his way back any day. Well, they're still today saying the same thing, and somewhere along the line, people are going to begin to wake up. And when they do, it's going to be terrible, because they're going to find out what they should have known before. They should have realized there was something wrong in the story, and now you begin to see the history is unfolding. That's why I thought having Tim on today to tell the audience about what he's involved in. So what can the audience take with them? What do they need to know, Tim?
Well, I think, like I said, to simplify things, we're looking at this preposterous story, the greatest story ever sold, which I think really hits it on the head. And so we're looking to do a documentary, like I said, in television, you can look them up on the internet, has won just about every award possible, and commercials, documentaries, etc. And so we're looking for partners, so to speak, in this venture. And then we can also use the documentary to...
Well, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something.
Sure.
Do you have a website where people can go to the website?
Well, we're doing that in 2 weeks. What I'd like to suggest is that, we coordinate through you, since I'm here on the I think that would be the best, is that we coordinate through you, and if you want any of the books that we have, the church book, the Pope book, we have 2 church books, 1 and 2, and the second book, which is done extremely well too, it's called The Book Your Church Doesn't Want You to Read, Book 2, or Synagogue, Temple, and Mosque. So the first book was just on the church, and then we expanded it because it's the same story.
Well, let me then say this, because we only have a few moments left.
Yeah.
Anyone that's interested to contribute, to donate, to help in any professional way, any intellectual way, anyone who wishes to help with this monstrous job of exposing the world to the hypocritical religions of this world. If you're interested to do something to help Tim and the people who are working with him, then go on my website to Jordan Maxwell Show. SHOW is important, because there are other websites out there with my name on it that I do not own. But my website is Jordan Maxwell Show. And go on Jordan Maxwell Show and send me an email and let me know that you are interested to do something to help, either donate money or put up the money for a motion picture. And there are people who are in position who could do that, who could come up with the money to produce an incredible documentary television show or something like that. We got all the professional help. And if you'd like to be a part of this project, JordanMaxwellShow.com. Thank you. Tim, thank you for being on the show.
Very good. Thank you very much, and we will talk.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American.
Practically narcotic.
Freedom.
Oh, yes, I like it very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow, friendships to flourish, with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs and artillery batteries not included.